Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of the Crypto Leviathan podcast. I'm your host, Dalibor. This is Andrew. Welcome. So, in today's episode, we'll be going over how to get started as a crypto mining as a newbie, what to look for, some tips and tricks, and basically giving you a head start on what approach is the best for someone who's new. So, Andrew, did you see anything interesting in the news that caught your eye this week?
A little swamped with work and everything, so I haven't really been following a lot of news other than the trucker convoys.
Hmm.
So nothing crypto related, but I think you have quite a bit to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess the biggest for news for crypto miners is Best Buy recently announced that all GPUs, PS5s, and Xbox Ones will be locked behind a paywall. So Best Buy has a new membership program. It costs around 200 US a year. It's called Best Buy Total Tech. So you get extended warranty, access to Geek Squad, and GPUs and PS5s and Xboxes are now behind this paywall. So what does that mean for anyone in the crypto space? Well, if you want to get a video card from Best Buy, you need to now buy this membership, unfortunately.
Dalibor, is this American and Canadian?
This is only American for now, but I wouldn't be surprised if it expands outside.
Do you think there's any value in the warranty? Because I know having your GPUs under warranty isn't a bad thing.
There is it would be a bad thing for one specific reason because a lot of these GPUs already have extended warranties. So Asus is the only one that offers 1 year. There's companies like MSI that offer 3 years and a lot that offer way more than this. So this would be just Best Buy exclusive warranty.
Okay.
So if you buy like certain hardware from certain manufacturers, you don't really care. This doesn't benefit you. Because like you said, Andrew, some PSUs have like 10-year warranties. So this additional 2 years or 3 years you won't care.
When is this starting?
It's already started.
Oh, okay.
So this membership, let me see if I can pull it up right here. So it started around 2 weeks ago. And that's approximately when they started restricting their big ticket items that are in shortage right now. And something else on the news I think that's really, really important is how the IRS has been looking to regulate crypto and like especially the US, the Joe Biden administration has been very particular about this. So one big breakthrough we got as miners is that the IRS won't subject them to their reporting rules like they will exchanges. What does that mean for miners? It's huge because now you don't need to keep track of all the addresses you're interacting with, all the potential customers you're sending money to. And why is this huge? Because it adds a huge amount of overhead. So, for example, if you receive money from Hive would need to provide you all the addresses where they got all their funds from, and then when you send the money to ShakeBay, would also need to keep track of all the addresses where the money is going to. Because this is eliminated, now you're considered just a customer that doesn't need to keep track of this logging information. So that really helps smaller miners. If this were to happen, I would say mining on a small scale will become impossible because it becomes prohibitively expensive.
Why do you think they went down this route?
Honestly, I think a lot of mining companies were lobbying for this. So there's a lot of like Bitcoin mining companies now in the US, particularly the Chinese ones that move there. And no one wants to keep track of this. This is hundreds of millions of dollars in regulation costs. So I think that's the motivation here where they realized, hey, our margins are going to be affected. Don't do this.
Interesting.
So that's a big piece of news. Another big piece of news is the IRS is actually suing someone to be able to tax NFT staking. So there's a case out of where is this? Joshua and Jessica Garrett, who sought a $3,200 refund for taxes they were paying on staking rewards in the past year. So this is currently in court right now. We'll see what the outcome is, but the IRS is basically arguing that unsold staking returns are taxable. And if that happens, if that precedent is set, that means you will have to sell a portion of your staking returns every year in order to cover this tax. So we're definitely going to keep an eye on this because this will be huge if this ruling actually holds, because this will totally change how staking is viewed. Because right now it's viewed, hey, I can keep compounding my returns and it's not a taxable event, kind of like capital gains, right? You don't make money until you sell, then it's taxed. But this would imply as you're making returns, it's all taxable. So the ROI on all your staking would go down significantly. So let me just give you an example. Let's say you invest $100 and you make 10% in 1 month. Out of that 10%, let's say that's now taxable. You might lose a third. Let's say if that's your tax rate. So now your returns are only actually 7%. So this could potentially reduce everyone's reward significantly depending on what bracket you're in.
And pretty bad for Ethereum because the returns are already so bad.
Well, yeah, something like Ethereum, that's what was it again? Like 2-3% a year, something really slow.
Very low.
No one's going to invest in that because especially if it's taxable as well. Imagine like you invest $100, you make $2, and your $2 are taxable. Well, what's the point at that point,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So we're definitely going to keep an eye on this. I suspect this ruling will falter because it disincentivizes investment, unless that's their intention. But I suspect they don't want to really do this.
Well, I think one of the things though is that this isn't normal investment. This is a type of investment that challenges the status quo and could change the monetary system. So it's a little bit of a different ballpark.
Yeah, you are right. It is different. It is different from a traditional investment, but but like I said, it's you're until you exchange the fiat. That's been the traditional way of taxing crypto, right? When I exchange it to another currency or when I cash out into fiat. Those have been the ways that they've taxed. This would be a radical departure from that. So that'd be a third layer of taxation, which we haven't seen before. And a lot of people want to push that, staking is green. But if you do this, you're just going to disincentivize and you're going to convince people to go back to the old model of proof of work. So I don't really see why they would want to do this if they don't want to disincentivize proof of stake.
Yeah, I see your point. Just back to the Best Buy thing. So we'll monitor all this. We'll of course let you the audience know about updates. But when it comes to the Best Buy, it's something that we may have to join. So we'll let you know if we do and what our experiences are like to see if it's worth it. But if we do, it won't be for a few months.
And this is why I think a lot of people are going to say, "Oh, I'm never going to buy this membership." But think about this: if Ethereum goes back to, let's say, $6,000 Canadian, or goes up again in price, that $200, it gives you an ability to buy more GPUs. So it's basically like a speed bump to get more cards. And because there's going to be all those bots that won't be created now because they're not going to pay each $200 each to get this membership, the likelihood of you getting a GPU is significantly higher than everyone else. So I just see this as an easier way to get a GPU if you are a miner.
So this applies to everyone who's trying to buy a GPU of any kind at Best Buy, correct?
Absolutely. Yep.
So this is really lousy for if you're just a gamer who just wants a GPU for your rig. And what's a 3080 or 3060 Ti supposed to cost? And you gotta add $200 to that. It's not as big of a hit if you're buying a 3090, but when you're buying a lower level GPU, it's substantial.
Absolutely. Like a lot of these companies don't care about the little guy, right? All they care about is increasing their margins. So as a crypto miner, you don't care because this is, like I said, this is just a speed bump, right? It's like a paying a fine of $200 to continue your operations. It's not gonna stop anyone. But like you said, for the gamer, adding $200 to your graphics card, that's like a slap in the face. So they're not going to, like, all these solutions that they're implementing is not going to stop crypto miners. It's just putting more gatekeepers that are going to prevent more product from falling in the hands of the consumer. So all their actions are leading to a result that they don't want, or they just don't care. I guess you could be the judge of that.
On top of the membership, are there still going to be other types of restrictions like one per customer or something to prevent people from buying all of them?
That is a good point. Considering how Best Buy has handled it in the past, I don't think they'll care because I know people just go in store and buy as many unless they track it in a database, which I assume they won't. If you go in person, just buy and show your membership, they'll probably scan it and sell it to you.
Because
I get
it's like Costco. It's like the more you buy, the more worth it the membership is.
Yeah. And another benefit, actually, this is why I say it benefits miners even more. You get free 2 day shipping. So it incentivizes you more to use this service because you're gonna get the cards quicker than everyone else. And there's a 60-day return policy. So like I said, it really benefits miners. It doesn't really benefit the end consumer.
It only benefits miners. It's terrible for gamers because when you said it was $200, I was like, well, if that's what's necessary, that's what's necessary. It's just a business decision. But when it's a gamer, especially if you're in high school or something, this is your first gaming rig. You might not be able to complete your rig, or it'll take you a lot longer to finish what you're building because of this vital component that's just kind of gone up in price.
Yeah, this is like I said, this is like a $200, like you said, $200 add-on to a GPU for everyone, except crypto miners who don't care.
So
So
if you're a gamer in this case, what you should do then is look at the cost of the GPU you want at Best Buy plus $200 versus just a scout price, assuming that you're not looking to buy any more GPUs for that year.
absolutely, that's a great point, Andrew. So if you want, for any consumers who want a GPU, add an additional $200 on top for a card you see at Best Buy, and that will be what it is. So unfortunately. Anyways, there's another great article, Andrew. There's just a lot of stuff happened this week. So there's an NFT linked house that sells for 650,000 in Proppy's first US sale. So a house in Florida sold as an NFT for 653,210 ETH at auction. And yeah, this is the first time this has happened in the US. And I'm very curious to see if any more houses will take this approach.
What exchange or marketplace did you say it was on?
Uh, there's a company called Proppy. I'm not sure what the details are on Proppy itself, but we know for sure the transaction took place on the Ethereum network because they didn't mention 210 ETH was a sale price.
So this would be no different than you or I selling our property in a regular way, because I'm pretty sure, for it to legally stand up, you'll still have to go through a lawyer. You'll still have to go through your jurisdiction's registry, but you're just selling an NFT on top of this as a secondary, like kind of like a title.
Yeah, but if you look at the article, they've totally bypassed realtors in this sense because they went straight to auction. So
Right.
that 5% commission that realtors typically charge, you don't get that. This is going to the auction house probably instead.
I see that, but the only difference between what actually happened and say doing the same thing without the NFT but selling it through say Kijiji or eBay or some other auction platform is that it also comes with an NFT. There's really no blockchain aspect to this aside from essentially having an extra title as an NFT, but everything else could be just done through traditional means that can still bypass a realtor. It's just a private sale where you don't pay your 5%. You still, but either way, I don't know if they did, but it's still recommended that you go through a lawyer and that the transfer is still registered with the state or provincial registry, right? Because otherwise, sure, the NFT says you own it, but that government doesn't recognize the NFT.
Exactly.
So I think it's a gimmicky, right? Because I don't think it. I don't know. Did it go substantially over what the house is worth?
That is a great point. It's a 2,164 square foot house in Gulfport, Florida. So it clearly is a big house, and 653,000 US for a house. That's quite substantial money for most people, right? It's not a small house.
My feel is that it's gimmicky and that really it's just a private sale that just happens to come with an NFT that says you own it on top of the title you've already, the regular title that you've received with the purchase.
I guess in the long run, I could see NFTs being applied in real estate, but I would say in this current form, the way they've implemented, I don't think it's good enough because I'd think if you can tie like an ownership deed, all the legal documents in the NFT, then that would make sense, right? You can transact and a lawyer signs off on it and transfers ownership to your wallet. That could potentially work. But in this
Yeah.
current state, they're just giving an NFT token saying, hey, I own this, but anyone can create that for any house they have.
So for that, what you're saying to work, you would have to essentially come up with a service, essentially a product that is a a land registry system that uses blockchain as opposed to a conventional database, and just sell that to the jurisdictional government instead, right? That's how you would get them to transition over. It's just a different platform that the local government would use to fulfill those transactions. However, if if the government does adopt, say, I know in Canada, I think one of the big ones is called, I want to say it's called TerraView or something like that. If they switch to a blockchain platform, but then if it's running off public blockchains like Ethereum or something like that, then at some point people are just going to bypass the government completely. So that'd be, I think, how that would happen.
Yeah, exactly. So like NFTs being applied to housing, I'm not entirely sold on it just because, like you said, because there's always that government layer, and we know governments move slowly, right? They're always more conservative in implementing any new technology. So it'll take probably quite some time before they even consider doing this. That's number one. Number two, they're trying to cut out realtors, and realtors are a pretty big lobby group. Like in Canada, in the US, doesn't matter. They hold a lot of power because they are the gatekeepers for buying and selling and marketing. So if you don't have the realtors on board, I don't see this happening either, personally speaking, because like I know examples of where the seller, I know you've told me this story, Andrew, where a seller was being greedy and refused to sell a house that was got a pretty high offer. What did the realtors do? They chose to boycott that house because they didn't want to take this deal. So you don't want to end up in a situation where a bunch of realtors are saying, hey, let's boycott this house. They're trying to cut out our commission, right? So you have to work with them. You can't like just cast them aside.
Yeah, and there was I want to say it's, yeah, CBC Marketplace. They did an episode or a segment where they were showing what happens if you do a private sale. So they had a couple people who were doing a private sale, and I think they posed as uh, like the reporters posed as buyers, and they noticed that their realtors would make excuses to not go to the private sale house and say either the seller hasn't gone back to them, or that it's a, I don't know, a bad neighborhood, or it's not worth it, or whatever, because it was a flat fee they would get instead of a percentage. And but what the realtor didn't know was that the CBC reporters had direct contact with the seller, and the whole thing was just for, for reporting purposes. So definitely, if it's something that's not advantageous for the realtors, they will band together and screw you over.
Absolutely. We should bring on a realtor in a podcast because I've been seeing like there's a lot of people trying to implement, property NFTs, fractional ownership of properties, NFTs. I'll have to get their take on how this works and where they see the pain points, where they see the technology applying. That should be definitely an episode for the future.
Yep. Yep. We know some realtors, so we'll try to line someone up in the near future. Well,
Absolutely.
actually, hopefully Igor gets his license and he'll come back because
Okay.
he is the NFT master.
Yeah, I think the NFL NFTs just launched. So yeah, maybe we'll bring him on pretty soon again to talk about that. I'm sure he's definitely deep involved in that. All right. So now let's move on to the main topic. How do you get started in mining? So the easiest way, in my opinion, is if you already have a desktop at home, check that your computer is at least modern enough to support PCIe 3.0. What does that mean? So there's a graphics card slot. So you would open up your PC, you would take it out and see what the slot type is. Most computers made within the last 5 years have a PCIe 3.0 slot. If it doesn't, if it has PCIe 2.0, that means you have to get a new desktop computer. And that should be pretty straightforward. You go on Best Buy, you can go on Newegg, any site you want. These are the two things to look for. If you want to specifically start GPU mining, make sure that the computer has at least a graphics card that's a 3060 to 3070 or it could be a 3060 Ti too. In that range, if you're looking for an NVIDIA cards. If you're looking for AMD cards, 6700 XT to a 6800. Those are the sweet spots you want to be because you're making at least decent cash flow. If you have a lot of money, I would recommend going with a 3090.
Can I interject here?
Go ahead.
That's the best way to get started in profitable mining. If you want to just get mining in general, you can use your computer as is, even if it doesn't have a GPU. Just download NiceHash, and which is the easiest way. I mean, there's other ways, but NiceHash will start mining off your CPU. It'll probably mine Monero. The returns will be pretty close to zero. Actually, it might be negative.
They are negative for most people.
Right. So the one thing you got to check is calculate how much you're getting as a return and how much extra electricity you're using, because theoretically you'd be using your CPU or GPU or whatever 24/7 running hot. So, but if you just want to get experience and just get practice and just see what it's like, the easiest way is just download NiceHash. It's all visual, so it's all clicks, no setup really of any kind. Just make an account, link your email, and then just start going at it, right? And then you'll actually get in the weeks and months a few cents in your account or a few cents worth of Monero, and you can actually try to send it and that kind of thing and just play around with it. So it doesn't hurt. I don't think it'll cost you a whole lot, but it's also you're not gonna really make any money. You're gonna lose a few cents, right? So that's the easiest way to get started, just to learn the ropes, but follow what Dalibor saying if you actually want to make some money.
Absolutely. So Andrew's point, if you want to get your feet wet, excellent way to get started because you're taking no risk. You're figuring out, is this something I want to do? Because we'll be totally honest, mining's not for everyone. There's times where we get very, very frustrated. Like just this past weekend, we had a motherboard go down and we were very angry and we had to order another one and I had to go this weekend and replace it. And now currently we have another board that's acting up. So we have another 3 GPUs down, but we're working on taking care of that. So that's why you need to figure out, is this for you? Because there's a lot of technical expertise as you start scaling. So if you start small, spend very little money, then if you decide, hey, this is not for me, the worst case scenario is, hey, I have a good desktop computer. I can use it for video editing. I can use it for playing games. There's a bunch of other uses for it, which is the great thing about GPU mining. So yes, these computers will be expensive if you're buying a new one. If you're going with what I've recommended, you're probably going to pay between $1,000 to $2,000 for a computer. I know for a lot of people, that's a lot of money, but look at it this way. If you set up mining, do everything, you can make all your money back within 2 years on this computer. So when you factor that in, it doesn't really cost so much because you'll be getting your money back eventually.
I do want to say though that 2 years may not be guaranteed. After proof of stake, if Ethereum is no longer mineable, it will not be mineable after proof of stake, but we don't know if it's going to happen right away. We don't know what the returns will be like with other mineable coins. I still have high hopes. We have to. We're too deep in the GPU game, but that 2 years could easily be 4, 6. Who knows, right? Anything can happen.
Absolutely. So there's, like any investment, there is risk. Some people would argue there's huge risk in crypto. I guess the best judge is you. What kind of risk you're acceptable for you. For us, like Andrew said, we're very deep into this. We love it. We're here for the long haul. We're going down with Ethereum 2.0 if it happens. But this is the beauty of it. This is why we like GPUs versus ASICs. So when you have like a graphics card, if, for example, Ethereum is no longer mineable, there's a bunch of other coins you can mine. The returns might not be the same. Hey, but at least I can mine or do other stuff with it. With an ASIC, let's say Bitcoin goes proof of stake, which will never happen. But let's say hypothetically, now you have a bunch of these ASICs that are useless. You might as well throw them out because you can't do anything with them anymore. So that's why we always say start off with a desktop computer. And in the worst case scenario, if you decide not to do it, you have a nice computer. That's basically it. Now, what are some things you need to look for? Electricity costs are always the most important thing when it comes to mining. So if you are not in a jurisdiction where it's around 10 cents US kilowatt, I'm sorry, you won't be able to mine profitably potentially. Like right now, you may be fine, but if your electricity prices are too high, you won't be able to do much. Like even where we're at, we're just around the 10 cent mark. So we would like to get that down to be more competitive. But if you're like in the 20 cents US or 30 cents market, don't even bother because you won't be profitable. You'll be losing money on this constantly.
Right. And just one note there is that if you do set this up as a regular business, as we have, the electricity costs are deductible, but it still may not make sense, right? Depending on what your costs are and everything.
Yeah, there's another factor too. Your GPUs are deductible and all your computer hardware. I think the 2 years is approximately the lifespan of it. So that's also deductible from a business. So in terms of your revenue, you have a lot of deductibles that you can do to justify it. But again, talk with your tax accountant. We're not professionals. We're still learning as we go. But there's a lot of benefits to mining as a business that we're discovering as we're doing right now.
But I think for the purpose of this particular podcast, it's for people who are just starting. So you're definitely not going to be registering a business when you're
No, absolutely not.
You're buying one GPU.
Specifically in Canada, though, I think you would qualify as a hobbyist. So it would be taxed at capital gains, if I recall correctly, because you don't have like on scale, you don't have multiple GPUs, you aren't selling constantly, you're probably holding it for a long period of time. So you'd probably classify as a hobbyist. So your tax rate would be much significantly lower. Don't worry about it unless you're in a 50% marginal tax rate. But then again, I'm sure if you make that much money, you know how to avoid paying taxes.
So we covered how to get started at a semi-profitable level. NiceHash is the easiest way to go. So NiceHash, the good thing about NiceHash is that it's one desktop client and it has an app that you can use to monitor your progress. And it's capable of mining, several different coins, several different algorithms, and it's the same client for both CPU and GPU. The downside though is that NiceHash takes a little cut and it's a little bit higher than if you're just to go through a regular pool, that kind of thing. But the pros are that it's super easy and that so this is good and bad, depends on what your needs are. Your payout will always be Bitcoin. So it could be mining Monero, it could be mining Ethereum, whatever, but it gives you Bitcoin regardless. The pro there though is that the payouts are every couple hours, regardless of quantity. Whereas the way we do it, we're mining Ethereum directly from an Ethereum pool. It's based off of a minimum threshold. So depending on how many GPUs, your payoff could be months. For us, it's about every couple days, but that's a factor as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's actually a big factor, right? So if you have one GPU, you probably want to go to a pool or setup that allows you to get paid at least every couple of days. You don't want to wait 2-3 months to get a payout, which is no one's going to want to do it, the period. So that is an important point. Another important point, I think, is in order to mine Ethereum, you have to have at least 6 gigabytes of memory in your graphics card. So make sure if you want to specifically mine Ethereum, they buy one with at least 6 gigs. Now, I did say my recommended if you're buying a new one, but if you have an existing card, make sure it's at least 6 gigs. Otherwise, you won't be able to mine Ethereum, and then your profitability won't be great no matter what. So that's an important factor. If you want to mine Monero, or if you want to start off with CPU mining, AMD processors are the way to go. Until once, you can potentially, earn decent returns. However, with, like a new AMD 5950X, 5900, even a 3900X, your returns are going to be significantly higher than the vast majority of Intel processors, just because there's multiple cores. So having more cores on an AMD CPU is significantly better than Intel's, which have higher clock speeds but smaller amount of cores, just based on the way the algorithm works. So keep that in mind as well. If you're buying a PC, my ideal combination would be get a AMD build, because you don't need to worry about the hash rate limiter also on NVIDIA cards. So right now, if you get like a 3060 or a 3070, there's a hash rate limiter that limits the returns on Ethereum and also messes it up with some other network, with some other algorithms such as Conflux and other coins. So to save your headache, go for an AMD build, get like a 5800X or 6800 card in there, something like that. That way it saves you a bunch of headache. That's at least my personal opinion. based on, ease of use.
Yeah, so we have a couple boards that are AMD, a couple boards that are Intel. So we're doing a little bit of Raptorium mining. I think actually I think it's all Raptorium right now. So
Yep.
that's CPU mining. Um, let's see. I'm trying to think what else. I personally still use NiceHash to this day. So I have a couple gaming desktops that I got when we first started, and I use it for gaming. I play Grand Theft Auto and that kind of thing. But when I'm sleeping and I'm not playing, which is most of the time, right? Because I only play here and there, it's just mining Ethereum. I think it's mining Ethereum, but I use NiceHash for the most part. What else? Oh, I did find that NiceHash doesn't work. Well, at least when I first got my new desktop that I built, and I got a 3060 Ti low hash rate, I found that the returns with NiceHash was less than if you were just to use the what is it? It's not Phoenix Miner. I think it's
T-Rex miner.
yeah, T-Rex. It was a little bit less the hash rate. So actually, I do have one desktop that's using T-Rex. So I'm sure that's been fixed now because NiceHash has new versions released all the time, and I think just the algorithm maybe just wasn't updated or configured properly. But yeah, that's where I'm at personally. A little bit of NiceHash and a little bit of T-Rex. So T-Rex is a little less user friendly. You're downloading, it's like a exe file or something, and then when you open it, it looks like one of those command prompt windows, and then you have to configure stuff in a notepad essentially, and then you'll have to get the configuration text from probably the pool website. So it's not as user friendly as something like NiceHash, but you only have to set it once. So if you have someone who knows how to mine, or you can reach out to us and we can just copy and text the stuff for you, right? And you just want to set the right pool address and make sure that you replace the default wallet, which is probably the developer's wallet address, with your own. I think that's a common mistake. So, with all these millions and millions of people who download T-Rex and these other mining programs, I bet that any given month they're making thousands of dollars from people who just leave it on default, even for a day, right?
Yeah, that's very unfortunate. But yeah, NiceHash is definitely the easiest way to go if you want to dive in. If you are comfortable like downloading and dealing with command prompts, notepad, T-Rex is a great option. So I think Andrew, you can attest to this. NiceHash is always behind the curve. So let's say there's a new T-Rex miner released that enables you to get more mega hash out of your card. It's going to take maybe a few months for a NiceHash to implement it. But if you're using T-Rex or if you're managing that miner yourself, you're going to get these updates a lot quicker. So as a pro and a con, I would still say that the cons outweigh the benefits. If you're a newbie miner, I would still go with NiceHash, unless you're a developer or you have a lot of computer experience and are comfortable with it.
I think you can agree that it's all NVIDIA's fault with their LHR nonsense.
Oh yeah, it's very unfortunate, but that is a complexity in mining, right? That it's still profitable even with LHR cards, but you just have to deal with this BS they've implemented right now.
Yeah. Let's
So
see.
there is a 3090 Ti coming out, but Nvidia is going crazy. They're going to make it around $4,000 US. And I was looking at it. I don't think it makes sense to get because it's going to be around 140 mega hash. People are predicting. So it's only 20 mega hash more, but it's an extra $1,000 of a card. So I don't really know who that appeals to. Maybe like the enthusiast gamers, but for mining, you might as well get the 3090 and save and get an extra card after that.
Gamers for sure, right? Because miners look at everything from a financial planning, financial management perspective. Do the returns justify the cost? But for gamers, it's less tangible. So I do a little bit of VR gaming and that kind of thing, and I'm always like, man, I shouldn't have got this 3060 Ti. I had a chance to get a 3080 at the same time when they're both in stock. I was like, oh, I should have spent the extra $1,000, got the 3080 Ti. And it wouldn't necessarily made. I think the returns would have been the same, but the returns would have been at the same ratio. So I was like, well, whatever. Maybe I'll just get a second 3060 Ti and throw it on the same desktop. The 3060 Ti I have is good enough. So I looked at it from a business sense. I was like, well, I don't want to spend 2,000. I'll spend 1,000. And at some point, I'll just get another 3060 Ti. But from a gaming perspective, I should have just got something more powerful.
I think you're shooting yourself in the foot now because they've unlocked the 3080 Ti. I think it goes up to 100 mega hash now. So it was equal at the time. Now it's not anymore.
Yeah, well, in retrospect, yeah, that's what I should have done. And I think I drove 8 hours to get it, 4 hours each way, just because I'm currently just in the middle of nowhere and I had to drive into the city to pick it up. So, oh well, it is what it is. Like it still works. Whatever. It's all good.
Yeah. Well, to get graphics cards nowadays, you have to go a long distance, unfortunately. Even now, like the shortage has improved, but I don't really see it the prices coming down. They've come down a little bit, I would say, but nothing too drastic. The question is, will prices ever come back down to like 2020 levels? I don't think so personally, Andrew. What do you think?
I think if proof of stake with Ethereum goes through in a timely manner and the other coins drop substantially, then I think there's a chance, which is good for gamers, not good for me and Dalibor. So we'll see. Um, I'm hoping that my prediction is that prices will stay high, that the other coins that are mineable will still be high enough to justify buying excess amounts of GPUs. So I think that prices are going to be high forever. But the thing is, prices of everything are going up: housing, food, across the board. So it's not the only thing. It's just for different reasons.
Yeah, and the thing is, electricity prices tend to be more sticky because they're government regulated, right? So if everything's going up, price of electricity will eventually go up, but there's going to be a lag. Same thing with property taxes. Anything the government taxes or regulates will go up much slower than everything else. That's why we're seeing spikes in food, spikes in graphics cards, everything else. This will just follow suit later. So in the meantime, even though these coins, the Ethereum might go proof of stake, you'll still be profitable probably for the next couple of years until all these expenses catch up.
Yes. Trying to think what other areas of mining have we not covered. So we talked about
Troubleshooting,
hardware. Oh,
troubleshooting.
yeah, there we go. So
That's one of the biggest parts. That's one of the headaches everyone says.
when everything goes smoothly, it could be weeks or you don't have to touch anything. But when something doesn't go right, especially in the initial setup, a lot of the stuff wasn't designed to kind of work together. It's just been kind of rigged to put together with like software that is wasn't also meant to run off this stuff. So it's a miracle any of it really works. But fortunately, the other guy in our team, he's a subject matter expert in mining for many, many years. So lots of trial and error experience on his side so that he can, fix a lot of this stuff intuitively. For us, we have to be it's easier for us to just ask him what's wrong versus us reading into it and going through forums and that kind of thing. So yeah, that's one headache is the troubleshooting at the get-go. And then if anything breaks down the line, my one tip is that if something works well together, don't move it around, just leave it, mine it until a component goes down, until a component wears out, but don't start swapping motherboards, swapping risers, RAM, anything, because it'll just set it off. You're thinking you're swapping an identical piece of equipment, but it just stops working.
Yeah, like we've experienced that. I'll give you an example. So we have a 12 card mining board, like a motherboard that we were swapping in since it was currently on a 6 card rig. And I took it off that frame, put it on a bigger frame, and I put in a 6 card GPU board on this frame. And then 2 of the cards wouldn't work. Why? We were trying to debug it for hours, and we eventually came down to the conclusion that the BIOS on there limits it to 4 cards only. And you're going to be spending hours potentially trying to figure out something like this. Obviously, as a newbie miner, you'll probably just have 1 or 2 GPUs in your computer. You won't have to worry about stuff like this, but it is a headache just worrying about, figuring out stuff like this. So you're going to have all these configuration issues. You need to check. I think a big one, actually, Andrew, that a lot of people need to keep in mind is making sure your power supply can handle mining. So especially like if you buy a nicer desktop computer, if you can stick like 2, 3 graphics cards in there, make sure your power supply can support it. And if you're running if you have like 2 3080s or 2 3090s in your computer, and if you're using splitters, be careful because our subject matter expert has said that these things can melt if there's a lot of high voltage being transitioning through the splitter. So make sure you get high quality splitters if you're going to be doing like that. Don't cheap out on this stuff because you will break your hardware. And what would you rather have? Save a couple bucks on a splitter or destroy your graphics card? You pick.
Or burn down your house, right? There's a
Yeah,
picture I saw with I think someone's like garage burnt down. Now, a lot of that is not inherent to mining itself. It's somewhat user error and just knowingly buying substandard equipment. So get high quality stuff. I think in the case of that miner who I think he lost like 3 gigahashes or something from his garage and the whole place was just burnt down. I don't think structurally it burnt down, but the inside was just like completely charred. I think he was using extension cords that were below the recommended gauge. And so you want to get a nice thick gauge extension cord that can handle the electricity going through. Don't skimp out on that stuff. If it's double the price, pay double the price because what's it going to cost you to replace all your GPUs and your garage?
absolutely. So that's another actually important point. If you're in North America, 120 volt, 15 amps is a standard. So if you're putting like a bunch of GPUs on there, and then let's say your entire floor is wired on one breaker, you can't do that. You won't be able to run anything else on that floor. So you might have to pay a little bit of money for electricity to make sure that plug can support all the graphics cards you're running in your computer or even your computer. Because if you have 1,000 watt uh, power supply in your computer and you're trying to run graphics cards or play games, you might not have enough power. So that's another thing you need to take care of because you don't want to trip the breaker. You don't want to potentially set a fire off. So those are some tips we give you. Take this very seriously. If you don't have a ground wire as well, if you have a really old house and like you have knob and tube wiring or aluminum wiring, get that replaced because that is dangerous, especially if you're running high voltage stuff like this. You don't want to be doing that, period.
Yeah, all good tips. Also, heat management is important. So you're gonna notice that if you're just running one gaming computer, not gonna be a big difference. But if you're running probably I'd say 4 GPUs and up, you're gonna notice a difference of heat in the room that it's running in. If it's your basement or your garage, you probably don't care, but you still need to keep the temperatures low enough so that it's optimal for the cards. But if you're running this stuff in an area that people live in, you gotta factor that in, right? In the summer, you're gonna be running AC on full blast all the time. In the winter, it's not a big deal. You can just open a window. So one of the solutions we came up with, because some of our stuff was in like a living room, that kind of thing, we got a marijuana grow tent and filled that with GPUs and had 2 powerful fans, one blowing cold air in and one sucking hot air out. Now, the downside with that is that it's very loud. So, a lot of those little things that we learned, it was effective in containing the heat. The inside of the tent has this reflective mylar material that traps heat in. So the heat was circulating properly from outside in and inside out and not getting into the rest of the house. However, now you have to deal with noise. So we had to buy noise canceling foam and that kind of thing. So just another consideration.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing I would take into mind that's not really related to numbers or particular issues is a lot of people don't like this stuff in their houses. So I know like our subject matter expert loves keeping GPUs. His wife hates the GPUs being in his house. And a lot of people like my parents complained about it. So a lot of people don't like this stuff in their house. So if you're planning to scale this, make sure it's in a place where people don't transition or don't use the space because they will complain about it a lot and you don't want that headache.
Yes, for sure. So we're looking at getting a warehouse this summer. We just gotta talk to a realtor still, and I think we gotta see what's going on with proof of stake before we sign any kind of lease. But ideally, we want these things out of all of our homes and just in a centralized location where it doesn't bother anybody
Yeah,
with heat.
could you imagine like your spouse or something and you bring all this stuff and it's causing heat and noise? They're gonna complain about it. No one wants this to live in this, right? No normal human being is gonna want this in their place.
And I'm saying this just because I think the majority of miners are statistically are men. So
Yeah,
at some point, if you go too extreme, you might have to choose between your wife or girlfriend or your GPUs, which is not a choice you want to make.
absolutely. Don't put yourself in that position.
I've actually yet to meet any female miners. I know some women that are into crypto. I actually have a meeting with a realtor who does some crypto related businesses hopefully next week. But as far as I know, she's not into mining.
Yeah. If there is any female miners out there, reach out to us. We'd love to bring you on the show. I think that'd be a fantastic conversation.
Absolutely, I completely agree. Um, Actually, I met this girl once. She was a little bit of a gamer. She built her own desktop. I'm like, why aren't you mining? And she just wasn't interested. I told her the returns. It's just in one ear out the other. I think her biggest thing was she just didn't want to potentially damage the GPU. She thought that it might reduce its lifespan, which I think I guess is a fair point.
It is a fair point. The memory use it destroys the memory on GPUs, if we're totally honest. So after 3-4 years of usage, it won't be it'll be very worn gaming
But
video
if
card.
you're a gamer anyway, you probably upgrade by then because the new games are going to demand higher performance GPUs anyway. So
And that brings me to another good point is managing your hardware, right? So you want to make sure your temps are under 70 degrees for all your cards, because the higher the temps are, the more that this equipment is going to wear down. So keeping this equipment properly cooled is very important for longevity, because it's not just, maxing the max settings, trying to get the most mega hash. It's also, how can I mine with these cards for the longest period of time? Because you are investing a lot of money, you want to protect your investment. And at the same time, you want to make money from your investment. So manage the heat, set up the temps in such a way that they're all under 70 degrees and that they're mining optimally. That's what we try to do. And that I think only had one GPU break so far, if I recall correctly, that we actually had to send back.
yeah, I don't remember which one it was, but there was an issue with one of them for sure.
But again, it wasn't an issue because we caused it. It just, I think it was a factory defect where there's some issues with it. But that's the important thing is you don't want to just max out the performance settings. You want to make sure that, the heat is manageable. And I'll be totally honest with you, if you have a desktop computer, like I have a relatively small room here. When I play games on this computer, it's really hot in here. So if you have one graphics card in a very small room, it will be hot in your room. So you have to plan accordingly. I know Andrews was talking about 4 GPUs. One GPU is enough to heat up if it's a really small room.
Great in the winter though.
In the winter, yeah, it's fine. You can turn off your furnace in some cases, right? If you have like a small apartment or something, you can turn off your heating completely, potentially. So you could be making money and getting free heating. I think it's a win-win in the winter. In the summer, that's a problem though.
Yeah, so those returns, those savings, you're just deferring it to the extra AC costs in the summer.
Yeah. And it can be brutal. I know like last year, Andrew, for us in like August and July, it was pretty rough for a couple of days, eh?
Yeah. So I know for the marijuana grow tent, and just to be clear, we don't grow marijuana, we don't smoke marijuana.
No.
It's for mining purposes only. So where the inside of the tent, it was reaching like in excess of 50 degrees Celsius, like 50 or 60 degrees Celsius. But then the outer room temperature is like 25 degrees Celsius. So I'm not sure what that is in Fahrenheit, but very, very hot in there. We had to put 2 different thermometers in there. One is a smart thermometer, so we can get alerts on our phone in case it gets too hot. Sometimes it did. And actually, I periodically, well, I should check more often, but I do check my nice hash to make sure my temps are good. But sometimes I check, and once in a while they're super hot. I think sometimes, like one time I saw my GPU was like at 80 degrees because the we'll talk about MSI Afterburner, but the MSI Afterburner fan settings, I don't know, they reverted, so the fans weren't running hot enough or powerful enough. So my GPU was running like 80 degrees Celsius. So you get a little sense of panic for a second and try to quickly restart everything. So MSI Afterburner, I think there's other options too, but MSI Afterburner is probably the most common. It's just a tool from MSI, the computer company, to for you to be able to change the like the clock speeds and the fan speeds for the GPU to get that optimal balance of temperature and hash rate.
Yeah, it's the easiest one, especially if it's just one GPU. I would recommend just going with that. It makes everything pretty simple. Yeah, fan speeds. I would say you don't need to put at 100%. As long as the temperatures are under 70 degrees, that's where you should be at. So once you configure like the core voltage and the memory mega hash, or is it megahertz? I think, yeah, megahertz for memory. Once you configure that and set those settings, just adjust the fan speed until you're under 70 degrees, and that's good. Leave it like that. In the summer, you'll probably need to up it because obviously it's going to be hotter room temperature. So you're going to need to up the fan speed. But other than that, oh, another tip, quick tip. If you're buying a power supply, get a platinum one because you will save electricity costs in the long term. These power supplies last 10 years and platinum is at 94% efficiency. So that means when you plug it into the wall, 94% of the power is used versus I think a bronze one's like 80%. So in the long run, you'll be saving electricity. So definitely go with that approach if you can. It justifies the cost.
Dalibor, do you recommend any brands in particular for power supplies, motherboards, or anything like that?
If you're a newbie, I would pick like an Asus motherboard, a Gigabyte motherboard, something that has a nice UI. Stay away from any cheaper motherboards that don't have a nice user interface because
Although our best, oh wait, isn't that the one that went down? I was gonna say our best
that
one.
one went down. The
Yeah,
Chinese board went down.
it had a good run though. It was the one that until recently, it never went down once. It was always reliable. I think it's been, well, we've been using it for a year. Do you know if our business partner gave it to us and he had it before, or did he buy it
He had
specifically?
it before. I think it was running for an additional 2 years. So it was very, very reliable board that just gave up.
But he has the magic touch, so we're gonna be sending it to him to see if he can look into it, and maybe he can revive it. He's done some crazy things. I am not recommending you do this, but he told me before that he's washed motherboards under the faucet to clean out dust and that kind of thing. He knows how to do that kind of stuff. I stay away from that, and I don't recommend you submerge any electronics or anything like that.
Well, yeah, he does some crazy stuff too. He like takes GPUs apart, replaces the memory pads. So yeah, he's like an expert. We'd love to have him on the show. He is a bit camera shy and he doesn't want to come on, but hopefully one day we'll be able to get him on because he's a wealth of knowledge when it comes to this stuff.
Yeah. So I think we've covered hardware, troubleshooting, a little bit about the software, some of the economic considerations, as well as some of the practical stuff in terms of having the stuff in your home. What else? Oh, I guess what to do with the coin once you have it. Do you hodl it, which is lingo for hold or squirrel away, or do you sell it? And then if you sell it, where do you sell it?
Okay, so let's just start up holding versus selling. If you are trying to make a profitable business or you want additional income, just sell it right away. Especially if you're mining personally, at least here in Canada. I'm not sure exactly, but I'm pretty sure if you sell as well, as long as you're not doing it commercially, I think that's considered capital gains, Andrew. I could be wrong. I'm not a tax expert, but if you just have one GPU and you're mining and constantly selling, I think that's capital gains still. It's not income.
I believe so.
But yeah, so if you want additional income, that's a great way to do it. If you're interested, if you just want to mine and like do anonymously, you don't want the government to know. Yeah, you can just create a wallet, get a ledger, like we've talked in a previous episode, and mine to that ledger wallet. And no one's gonna know that you have this crypto. And let's say it goes to $1 million, then you have this money that no one really knows or is aware of. So it depends what your end goal is. If your end goal is to be wealthy and escape, we don't recommend this. But if you decide to do that, that is one option you can take. Or if you just want to hold money and then use it for a down payment on a house later on, hodling is a great strategy.
Yeah,
And
that saved me. I had like $1,000 in nice hash, and I was a little short on my down payment, and that saved me.
yeah, absolutely. So that's one option. Option number two is you could use like ShakePay. You could use, that's in Canada. You can use like Coinbase. You can use these platforms. So what you do, you set up a wallet. You point your mining to that specific wallet. So when you get a payout, it goes to your wallet. Then from your wallet, you could decide, to send it to an exchange, convert it to fiat, and then sell it. That's your income. And I would do that in circumstances where you're trying to have a business or you want to buy a couple of GPUs to help with your expenses. So let's say you have a mortgage for $1,000. You buy a few GPUs, you make 200 a month, sell every month to cover some portion of your mortgage. That's also an option. A lot of people do that as well. So you have to pick which one you prefer. If you're running a business, you have to do option B because otherwise you're not really running a business, right? If you're not making any money. So those are the two real strategies here. You could also do something like, which other people do is, so let's say you're mining Ethereum, you get $200 for Ethereum, you can convert it to, let's say, Solana or other currencies on an exchange, and you can buy or stake them. So you can buy NFTs or stake it. That's also an option if you just want to, use that money you're making to invest in other things. People do that as well.
So I personally use NiceHash. I do have Coinbase as well, but NiceHash is how I use to cash out. It's just simple and quick. Coinbase is good if you're looking to invest in a variety of cryptocurrencies. ShakePay only has. Did I say ShakePay or NiceHash? I guess I'm ShakePay.
You said NiceHash.
I meant ShakePay. Sorry.
Okay.
So ShakePay has, I think, only Ethereum and Bitcoin, so it's good for transactions. But if you're looking to invest in like a variety of coins, and Coinbase is probably the way to go. Or
I think Binance is, yes, still has the most options, and crypto.com. I think Coinbase is like the third. They have the most friendly user interface. Binance's user interface is, yeah, it's complicated. I would avoid it if you're just starting out.
I had a Binance account. I cashed out completely, and I'll never use it again.
There you go.
There's also crypto.com, which I haven't played around with too much.
Crypto.com is better. Like, I would say it's simpler than Binance. Binance just has a lot of stuff. I think they need to separate their app. They need like a simple mode and an advanced mode. And I think that would solve a lot of the issues they're having right now. Maybe they do. Maybe it just is enabled by default, or they don't give you the option. But that's something they should work on.
So I think we covered everything. But if you have any questions, of course, just reach out to us and we're happy to answer them. And also, a lot of the stuff that I don't know, I just Google it, and there's always like a Reddit forum. Usually people are asking those kinds of questions, such as anytime I got a new GPU and I didn't know what the optimal configurations for MSI are for the fan speeds, for the the memory, the clock speeds and all that kind of stuff. I just went on Reddit and people would give their recommendations as to what works for them, and you can try it and see if it works. So definitely a large community around this stuff.
Yeah, Google is your best friend when it comes to this stuff like this. Join these communities and ask questions. Even there, like, we might not know the answer. Feel free to reach out to us. I'm at Crypto Dalibor on Instagram. Andrew's Andrew Crypto Knight, and reach out to us there. You can reach out to the show at Crypto Leviathan Podcast. You can find us on YouTube, on Instagram. Feel free to message us. We'll respond. We'll see if we can help you out. If we can at least point you to a direction, a Reddit forum where you can ask a question, because that's how we get a lot of the answers. Like, for example, who knew, like, on that motherboard that we got, that you could only support 4 GPUs, that we had to flash a new BIOS on it in order for it to support 6. We had to Google it. So a lot of that stuff is just, kind of figuring it out. Anyways, Andrew, any last thoughts?
No. We've been saying this for a couple of weeks now, but we just had to, some guests had to reschedule and that kind of thing. Busy time of year. So we should have someone this weekend. But maybe we'll see. Hopefully that goes through, and then we'll start getting regular guests again in the next few weeks.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. It'll be an interesting episode next week. I would definitely tune in. It's going to be an industry that, we don't really think crypto can apply to. It's going to blow your mind away.
So we'll see. And we're about a month away from the big fashion show. So I think it's I want to say it's like March 17th or something like that. We're just a little bit of a month, just over a month away. So looking forward to that.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll definitely be covering it. Stay tuned. Check us out next week. Thank you for tuning in. See you guys next week.
See ya.